Ready to go. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the BLDC to order, please. And first on the agenda is the approval of 2 minutes from the May 26th meeting and the June 13th, 2022 special meeting.
Make a motion for those minutes.
So moved. Next on the agenda is the presentation of the May 22 financial report. Rachel, please.
So we will start on page 4 for the restricted account. The end of month balance in the restricted account was $1,189,684.18. And we'll move to page 6 for the UDAG account. The end of month balance in UDAG was $1,221,781.55. Looking at the receivables page for the UDAG account, the only still outstanding payment is 142 Court Street. They have a pattern of they won't pay for 2 months, and then they'll pay 2 months at once, and then they won't pay for 2 months. So I am in touch with them, but we expect them to pay, and they are almost done. They are supposed to pay off either in July or August. So they're almost finished. Champs has paid. They're listed here as not having paid, but they paid in June. So we'll go to page 8 for the unrestricted account. You can see that we had a small deposit of $642. That was our admin fee on the EAP grant that came through from New York State. And then you can see on the next page, page 9, in the Triad account, that payment came in and we paid out the $63,640 to EAP. That was their, or to SUNY Broome, that was their final payment on their EAP grant from last year. Then we kept the 1% fee. That's the $642 that went into our unrestricted. So there is no activity in the veterans account. The next page we have is the delinquency page. That's page 12. And no new default accounts, delinquent payments from 142 Court Street and Champs, but Champs has paid, and 142 Court Street we expect to pay. So at the end of the month, the delinquency percentage for all loans not designated non-performing was 0.12. I don't know how these got out of order, but there was also no activity in the grant account on the next page. Any questions on the financial report?
It didn't happen in May with Mel Fresh Dairy did pay off, right?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Maybe next month.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it a little bit in reports.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. We have no old business today, but we do have a resolution to review in regard to the budget. And so if you guys could all pull that up, and if anybody has any questions on the budget. One big thing that has changed in the budget is the New York State Triad amounts that we receive. So that's just a big number if you see that.
Previously, there's COVID money in there, and that's no longer part of the program this year.
Anybody have any questions on the budget?
Sarah, sorry, I didn't recognize this one. 3% was going earlier. BLDC and talked about on Clinton Street that we were going to, Button said we don't want to do the BLDC
Which piece was it?
grant to study as an engineering work.
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah, and that needs to be we haven't gotten it formally approved yet.
Right. You're talking about transferring the money for the Clinton Street study.
Yeah. Is that coming, that's all being run out of the BLDC or is that gonna run out of
No,
the
it's
city?
running out of the BLDC.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know how
that,
much
and
we're
then
talking
there's
about.
the 50,000 for
But
the
those
facade,
are,
the DRI, and the grant
If
program.
it's like $50,000, I don't know what you think it's gonna be. We should just show that as a revenue and expense on here.
okay,
It's total of 250 then. for
Like
you.
you got the grant revenue, we just increase that to 50,000. and
put it
increase
under
the
grant
expense.
revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that modification, I think we can move to the resolution, which I will read. It is Resolution 21-10, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Binghamton Local Development Corporation approving the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-23, Cdbg fiscal year 48. May I have a motion?
Motion? I'll second.
So moved. Thank you. All right, and we're going to move on to the Strategic Priorities Committee report. Sarah will give us an update on that.
Yes, we have the priorities on Tuesday.
Yes.
this week, So not too long ago. Not much to report. I think the big thing that came out of the Strategic Priorities Committee was that committee reviewed the budget that just came before you and asked a couple of questions. We made some clarifications. There were some edits that Rachel made this week just to address those. And again, we'll make the edits that Chuck just mentioned. I'm going to get into some of the stuff we talked about in my report, but is there anything specific that I know Pear was there, Susan was there? You guys want to highlight? Ron is also on the line.
So,
We're continuing to focus on how we can best support the incubator with Pear, trying to get those programs that we launched throughout the last few months rolling when Audit approves the funds, but nothing too dramatic on the horizon.
Mayor Cram.
sure.
You're up.
I'll keep my remarks brief. I'll defer to Sarah for a lot of the updates. I would just say that, from my perspective, we continue to see a huge interest in cannabis in Binghamton. And, Sarah will touch on that, but the maps that were approved through the planning department and they're out for public comment right now. There's definitely a big spotlight on Binghamton, and we're happy to have it. So, that's what I've been working on the last couple of weeks, fielding calls, having meetings, and I expect potentially some news on that in the coming months. So with that, I'll let Sarah kind of take over from there.
Great. So I'll start with cannabis since the mayor left off there. The draft zoning that went out has received really positive reactions. We've had several inquiries for site selection for both retail and industrial. We treat those the same way we treat any other site selection requests coming to us. Where it will interact with the BLDC is mostly any interest that comes into the Charles Street Business Park, as that will run through this organization. A lot of it's going to happen in the private sector. There's not a lot of incentives or government intervention in this, just because it is so highly regulated at the state level that everything's kind of running through OCM, but we're happy to be part of however we can best support that industry in Binghamton. We've also worked with DASNY, so that's the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. They oversee a lot of the real estate in New York. So what they're doing right now is they're going into strategic cities, mostly in downstate, but they are looking at sites in upstate to enter into 10-year leases in properties that they will then renovate for use in retail cannabis. Those sites will then be available for social justice equity applicants who will be the first round of retail cannabis licenses that are awarded. So it's really a way for them to kickstart that, support those people in getting into those facilities. I also think it's a great way for them to showcase how they want these facilities to look across New York State. So we've given them 6 or 7 sites. They were really happy and pleased. We reached out proactively. They loved the maps. They were happy to hear that we had zoning in place already. That makes it easier for them to figure out where they can site select. So overall, I think the state's been really happy with Binghamton's approach, as well as the private sector partners we've been talking to. So Mountain Fresh Dairy, Brian mentioned this. We had that special meeting where we were allocating those funds to purchase the Mountain Fresh Dairy site. They came in before the auction and paid off everything that was owed to both us and the IDA and the back taxes. So would have been great to have site control of that property and be able to help direct its development. But second to that is getting all of our money back and being made whole on that loan. So we'll see that reflected in the June financials. It was more than what was owed to us because there's fines and fees. We're still looking at the details of how that breakout works. So you'll see the exact number next month. We had the business plan competition. Many of you were there for that press conference. Really appreciate that. We had really great feedback for the participants, both the first and second place winners. First place being, help me out here.
Strategic
Strategic Test Prep Solutions. Thank you very much, Laura Whitmore, who does a virtual test prep program. And second place being Downtown Danny's, which is a hot dog cart that locates over on Exchange Street. Third place being Used Fuse. Both Downtown Danny's and Strategic Test Prep were there in person. Both remarked that the business plan competition gave them a lot of structure and helped them look forward in their business and just things they hadn't thought about before. They were just operating their businesses and felt they were being successful, but this gave them a great framework to be able to be successful in the long term, and we're happy to support them. Third place winner, Used Fuse, was out of town, but that night they actually won a pitch competition in Nashville.
Yep.
So really great to see that they're being recognized, not just in our competition, but in competitions across the state, the country. And staff will be reviewing the feedback received. We had mostly positive feedback, but there's always room for improvement. If any of you have feedback on the competition, we'd be happy to incorporate that into our conversation.
We were talking before the meeting about increasing the level of prizes and going out for sponsorships next year. So I'd be happy to work on that with anybody else who would like to do so, because I think that's, the way to go to continue to sustain that competition. And certainly I don't, asking for money is always hard, but when you're doing something as important as that, I think it's the right thing to do. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, we would love to work with more sponsors on that.
Yep.
Okay. I also attended 2 conferences in the last month. One was the EDC conference in Cooperstown that I called into the last meeting from, and the second was the New York Conference of Mayors, the New York Revitalization Conference that the mayor also attended. Both were great. I think sometimes conferences can be not as useful as they should be. Both those conferences were amazing, made great connections, learned a lot. Talking about how to talk about our community's economic development story. And I've heard that from multiple sources across the past few months, is how important it is to be talking about successes that you have in your community, and highlighting those things to people from the outside, especially if you're not necessarily as engaged in economic development specifically or city work. How are we communicating that, what we're doing, and showing people that the taxes that they pay and the people that they support in these offices are actually doing great work and supporting our community. We also learned a lot about this year's Downtown Revitalization Initiative process. The state said the applications will be out soon. I don't know if that's 2 weeks or 2 months. It could be either in the state's mind. We should be hearing from that this summer about what that timeline is going to be, so that we can back into that with our consultant. As you guys know, that's being managed through the BLDC. You guys have authorized us to enter into an agreement with Barton and LaJudas. We'll have a meeting with them today, and we'll have more updates on that in the coming month. Last night, City Council approved the Renia loan, Rankin Holdings LLC, that we had approved through this body. So Rachel will be working with me and our team to advance that, and hopefully we'll get them closed in their loan ASAP, and they can start work on 221 State Street to get the Broome County Arts Council moved in there. It'll be a great anchor for our downtown arts district. I know we've talked previously about some of our loans that were not paying us. So Susan, Rachel, and I met with Ariel Hendricks from Fitness RX yesterday, Tuesday, and had a really great meeting. She has amazing energy. It really was just an issue of a lot of other things happening in her business and in her life. But seeing the numbers on paper, she felt very confident that she could start paying us in July. And we're really excited to support her business. She seems like a great asset to Clinton Street, and we're excited to work with her further. And a couple of things that will be coming up in the next month or so. We're anticipating a few loan applications coming in July. We sent out 3 applications yesterday for people to start filling out. I'm sure we'll get at least one of those back, if not all 3. But if it's not July, we'll probably see some in August. We've also got some interest from Claw, who has been before this board before and won our business loan competition last year, for some funding that will probably come through this board in August. And then Clinton Street Work DRI continues, and we will be updating you more next month. We have our kickoff meeting this afternoon, so there's not too much to share at this time. And that's just like a few things, small amounts of work being done. But any questions, I'm happy to field. Steve?
Those loans, any of them look like they could be restricted loans?
I think so.
No.
Maybe clause, but I don't know. I think it's going to be too complicated to go through restricted. We'll have to talk to Susan about that, because that's gonna be if it comes through with us, it's also gonna have some private
Yeah.
and some SBA affiliation, so it may not make sense for it to come through restricted, but there will be job creation with it, so I think we'll have to look at whether that makes sense for that tool.
Remember, it's 35K per job, and the owner of the company can't qualify for that.
Yes.
So that might be something in the future to look for. And then I'm just gonna tell you, our timeliness is coming up to the end of June. Thankfully, I'm not going to be including the Mountain Fresh Dairy because I don't have the date on that
Yes.
yet. And that's just pushing up our ability to make the timeliness even more.
Yep.
So we do need to start at some point either rolling out more revolving loan funds, because that's what's killing us every year.
Mhm.
Or the other option is to shave some money off to go to other projects like we're
Mhm.
doing for the 300,000 for the various projects. So that's just my 2 cents worth, because HUD's breathing down my neck right now. But I wanted to tell you on a completely different note regarding the cannabis. I have contacts with town union. I've kind of been like watching them. They hate cannabis. Like they don't want it anywhere near them. They are so opposed to it politically that I think that's actually a good boon for the city, because anyone who was going to set up shop there is going to say, I can just go across the city line and set up shop there. So I don't know if there's other communities in the area that are like that, other towns, other villages that are in that sort of just political fly. I don't know exactly what's driving against it. It could just be history, it could just be politics, it could be demographics or anything, but the city's ability to embrace this, I think it's going to actually do really good regional.
Yeah, and I'll give a lot of credit to the mayor for that, for being very forward thinking on cannabis. We're really appreciative for that support.
That's what we're banking on, Steve. We wanted to be the first one and early and often.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Hearing none, I will request a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second,
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, thanks, everybody.
great.
Very efficient.
Thanks, Ron.